Hello, we are from Group 10, and for today's History and Theory of Architecture class, we are going to discuss the topic of the development of modern cities and global architecture in post reform Indonesia.
Okay, so what is global architecture means in the context of post-reform Indonesia. So global architecture itself is referred to the architectural styles and also the urban development influenced by globalization, international trend, and also the modern economic growth. And after reform, the Indonesian cities started transforming into more modern urban environment, and architecture was not only longer about local identity but also became a symbol of modernization and economic process and also the global competitiveness. And this transformation changed the characteristic of cities, like urban area became more vertical, denser, and more connect, and more infrastructure oriented. And we can see this through the development of apartment tower, malls, MRT system, TOD area, which is the transportation oriented development, and also the smart city planning. And CBD is an example of global business urbanism, like its skyline and also the planning reflect international financial district like Singapore and also Hong Kong, showing globalization and corporate identity in Jakarta. And the next one is MRT Jakarta as an example of infrastructure modernization, like the MRT improve urban connectivity and encourage transit-oriented development. And it representing the shift toward a more modern metropolitan city.
So the next one is the turning point of the Reformation itself. So in this part we are decided to separate it into two parts, which is the before and after Reformations, which is the first one is on the before Reformation. The development was centralized into one area, which is the government employs a geopolitical strategies that positions the capital as the sole symbols of the nation's progress. By using this, it is affecting two functions, creating two functions, which is the internal and externals. On the internal is creating the hegemony, which is to instill a sense of awe and submissions in citizens towards the central government. On the other side, on the external, it is affecting on the diplomacy, which is showing the international community that Indonesia is now on par with modern nations. And the second aspect that the before reformations is architecture reflected state power and nationalism, which is architecture itself was used to replace colonial styles buildings such as massive modernist and brutalist, and erase their visual trauma, which is has characteristics as such as large-scale architectures, serves as a physical proof of a ruler's success, which is creating a public perception of an effective government and a strong nations. And this can be shown on the monas, which is the scale of the monas itself has use of monumental scales, and the locations also in the heart of the city at that time, which is the Jakarta. And the monas itself is usually used to construct a singular and grand narrative to national identity. And on the next one is the after reformations. The first aspect that is given is Indonesia become more democratic. It is transforming public spaces from places strictly controlled by the state into open, inclusive, and participatory arenas, which is giving the inclusivity and public accessibility. That one of the examples were the high fences surrounding government buildings or public spaces are being torn down or lowered to give the public a sense of openness. And the next aspect is foreign investment increased, that the architecture has become a symbol of Indonesia integrations into the global capitalism network. And by this aspect is foreign investment funds or drafts the development of supporting infrastructure that transfer urban mobility, which serves to facilitate the movement of goods, services, and people from abroad to urban business centers, which can be shown on the Tunjungan Plaza that are already placed on the Surabaya and built on 2001. It is showing about the after Reformation, the development is not centered like before, which is it start to spreading into outer of Java. And so Tunjungan Plaza also one of the example about the city residents have shifted from being mere spectators to the owner of the space.
So the next one is why did cities in Indonesia become much more urbanized? There are actually four main factors. The first one is globalization, which introduces global urban influences. After reformasi, Indonesia basically opened its economy to global markets and foreign investment, and this allows international companies and developers to enter Indonesian cities. And then they began adopting global urbanism, which could be seen through high-rise CBDs, mixed-use developments, luxury commercial districts, and also glass steel skyscrapers. This could be seen perfectly in SCBD. The second factor is economic growth, which drives modernization. After the 1997 till 1998 Asian financial crisis, Indonesia focused on rebuilding its economy. The government encouraged private investment to rapidly generate economic activity across many industries. They basically do that through large scale developments, for example, through office towers, shopping malls, apartments, hotels, and super blocks. And this also encouraged the increasement of employment opportunities, construction demand, business circulation, and also increases the land value. The third one is urbanization, which increases urban demands. So back then, more people moved to cities to seek better lifetime opportunities, which is called rapid migration. This caused major cities such as, let's say, Jakarta to become increasingly dense and overcrowded. It basically creates higher demands, cities, and because of that, cities began developing vertically compared to horizontally to actually limit the amount of space of land they would use. And this also pushed governments to improvise public transportation and urban connectivity through either KRL and MRT. The last factor is city branding, basically shaping urban identity. Post reform, Indonesian cities competed to attract foreign investors and tourists, basically by creating modern and globally recognizable urban identities. So, governments and private developers began prioritizing landmark buildings, large scale mega projects, and visually iconic public spaces. One example is the revitalization of Gelora Bung Karno Sports Complex during the 2018 Asian Games to actually give an image that Indonesia is, and not Indonesia, to actually give an image that Jakarta is a competitive city.
So next is who shaped post-Reformation urban development, where it's a collaboration between five characters. The first one being government, and their role is as regulator and urban planners. They do grant permits, creating spatial policies, approving infrastructure projects, and also directing urban planning. And yeah, their general job is to create policies. The next one is private developers, where they are producers of urban space. They do accumulation projects, super blocks, satellite cities, and also luxury urban districts, where generally they build the city. And then strategic alliances, they connect political power, capital, and globalization. They do funding, international architectural styles, construction of technology, and also global business standards. The next one is architects and urban designers, where they act as translators of global and local ideas. Their job consists of political goals, economic demands, global trends, and also local identity. And then the last one is civil society and communities, where they act as users and critics of the urban development themselves. They do displacement, inequality, environmental damage, and also privatization of public spaces. So yeah, again, linearly, their job is to create policies, build the city, bring capital and global influence, shape the design, and also experience and respond to the development. So, for examples of the previously mentioned characters, the first one being MRT, which is from the government, the second one being Sinarmas Land by the private developers, STBD by the strategic alliances, which are a combination of a lot of different people collaborating, and then architects and urban designers, for example, is Andra Mating and Ridwan Kamil. And then the last one is civil society, which is WALHI. WALHI is Wahana Lingkungan Hidup Indonesia. They are an organization that critique environmental and social impacts of urban developments today.
My name is Andres Kristiawan, and today I would like to explain you about how does physical urban transformation occur. So for the infrastructure development, like MRT, LRT, toll roads, or airports, in reality, government doesn't have infinite funds to make all that thing happen, but they have some strategies. The first one is called Triple P, or public-private partnership. This program basically is collaboration between government and private developer or foreign developer. For example, Japan International Cooperation Agency, they help the government to operate the tunnel boring machines for the Sudirman MRT project. And their second strategy is called zoning incentive regulations, or basically it's pelampauan koefisiensi lantai bangunan, or KLB. So, for example, developers near Dukuh Atas or Blok M stations, they will get bonus KLB from government, but in exchange, they need to open the ground floor for the public or for the pedestrian, so it can connect directly to the station. Moving on to the superblock development. So what is superblock? So superblock basically a vertical city within a city, but in reality, it requires a complex structural and circulation management. But they have some strategies. The first one is called shear podium structure. As you can see here in the example, Mall of Indonesia. So the mall basically acts as a podium, and on the top of it, on the rooftop, there are a lot of houses for the residents. And the second strategy is called circular separation. As you can see here on the example, Central Park apartment. So the architect designed a separate building course to prevent circulation conflict between the apartment residents and the mall visitors. Moving on to the next one for the smart city development, like PSD, SCBD, and also IKN. To achieve the clean and sustainability system, they have some strategies. The first one is called multi-utility tunnel, or MUT. For example, as you can see here in the IKN, so all the fiber optic and cable and the water pipes and also electric cable is integrated into a massive concrete tunnel underneath the sidewalk. So the result is no more messy overhead wires. And the second strategy is called climate responsive architectures. As you can see here on the example, Menara BCA Jakarta, they use insulating glass. So the goal is to blocking the solar heat gain while maintaining the natural daylight. Moving on to the last one, for the influence of global architecture. So their strategies is to have a collaboration with the international firm. So basically how it works is like the concept or design is coming from the international firm, and the execution is coming from the local firm. For example, like this, like the Podomoro City Delhi from Medan, the concept design is from the Singapore firm, and the execution is from the local, which is Airmas Asri. And the next one is Pollux Habibi in Batam. The concept design is coming from US, Ventress Architect, and the execution is from the local, which is Airmas Asri again. And the last one is Marvel City from Surabaya. The concept design is coming from Hong Kong, or Townland Architecture, and the execution is coming from the local, which is Indomegah.